Hello everyone, welcome back. This dresser I picked up at the Goodwill. It comes with a mirror, one of those big bulky kind. This thing had many deep gouges. It is a solid wood dresser. I mean, the only thing that's not solid wood is the actual drawers, but otherwise it's a solid wood. And my plans for this thing changed several times, which you will see throughout the video. So initially, because it had these deep gouges, I figured that, there was going to be veneer on top and I wasn't going to be able to scrape it and fix it properly. So I was going to paint the whole thing. That was my initial plan. And then I thought maybe I could do a two-tone because I do really like the two-tone. So I went in and I removed all the hardware and then did any fixes that needed to be, like as you saw there with that one drawer, there was some fixing that I needed to do. I then went in with some Dawn dish soap and a scrubber and I just scrubbed the whole thing down, cleaned it really well. And then after that was done, I wiped it down with some clean water. And I'm just peeling off these flower thingies. And this was the only one that came off more or less as a whole. The other ones all just broke apart and wasn't very good, but in the end I end up getting it all done. So this last one here is the worst. So to fill in those gouges, I'm using Bondo, and I'm going to go over the entire top, anything that I can find that has like a lot of damage and deep gouges and deep, holes and whatnot. I'm going to fill that in and I'm going to let that cure and then I'll sand it down later. While that's curing, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to scrape. I had decided on 2 drawers that I was going to try and scrape down, and because I found out that there was no veneer. I looked into that, and so I decided I was going to scrape them down and stain them to have kind of a little bit of the real wood. And it was here that I realized just how thick of a finish was on top of this whole entire piece. All the dresser, all the drawers, the top, it was very thick layer of finish. And so I figured after I worked on this drawer for a while, I sanded in between and I scraped, and it took a long time and it was hard to get through. So after I had done that, I figured, well, maybe the top is salvageable. And so this is kind of where my plans changed the first time around. I decided that I was going to paint the entire piece a chocolate brown, and I was going to give these 2 front drawers, or the 2 drawers that I'm going to sand down, I was going to give them like a whitewash. As you can see here, there was some ghosting, so I was kind of like, I don't know if it's going to, or not a whitewash necessarily, but a paint wash. And so I was kind of concerned with that ghosting of the old hardware, which ends up not being a problem at all because I don't end up paint washing them. I also wanted to say a big thank you to Suzanne, or Susan Dickerson. I had put on my community post asking what I should do with this piece, and she was kind enough to recommend that I do something teal. Now that is so far out of my comfort zone, but I was very intrigued. I did look into it. I did look into some teal colors, and I figured this was a bit of a big piece for me to do that. I wasn't quite sure. It might be a bit too bold, so I do plan on doing something with some teal. I found some really nice colors, so thank you so much for your suggestions. I do appreciate that very much. So here I'm coming in and I'm going to sand down all of this Bondo, and after I've gone in and I sanded everything down and scraped the whole top down, like there was really only a little bit. The gouges were not nearly as deep as they initially appeared. So I was able to go in and do some staining with that instead of just do a paint wash. So I decided I wanted to add the accent, if you will, to the bottom skirting of it. I figured I might tie it all together a little bit more, and I was going to add the paint wash to that as well. So as you can see, I'm scraping it off, cleaning it all off, and sanding it down. I sanded down with those thicker areas. I started with an 80 grit because my goodness, it was really hard to get through all that. And then I went in with your 120, and I went all the way up to 220 to get it nice and smooth. And then I went in all of the other areas, and I scuff sanded everything really well. And here I'm just scraping off this finish. It was flaking, and I didn't want to paint over that because that was obviously not going to hold up at all over time. So again, I'm coming in with some Bondo, and I'm going to fill in the screw holes or the handle holes for the smaller drawers, and then the two top drawers had this faux keyhole, and I'm going to fill in those holes as well. And it was because of those faux keyholes that I decided that those two top drawers were not my choice of accent drawers. Some might be wondering because they do have a little bit more flair to them, if you will. But anyhow, that was my reasoning. And so this is the mirror portion, and I'm just taking off these panels. These were also going to be part of my paint wash to tie it all together. So I'm just prying them off. They came off really easily. And then I end up going in, I scrape them off, sand them down, same steps as I did with everything else. I'm also going to come in and I'm going to do the same thing with the top crown portion of the mirror unit and clean that all off, because that is also going to be right now, what I was thinking at the moment was the paint wash. And I'm just wiping everything down now with a damp cloth, get all the dust off, and we are finally ready for the fun part. Put some color and just a fresh face on this thing. So as you can see, I went in, there was some spots on the main unit where I put some more Bondo on, and I did some more repairs. Like I said on the other thing there, the footage got lost. So I prime everything that's going to get paint, like a solid paint, not just a paint wash. And it was while I was priming it that I noticed that some of the curves and some of the style of it were similar to the bed and the nightstands that I did. And then when I got to the mirror portion, that's when I was like, wait a minute, it's got the same thing. It was this, I was like, I could totally make this be all one set. So that's what I decided to do. So I took the mirror unit and I flipped it on its head on top of the dresser, and I didn't want any of the stain to run down it, so I figured I would just flip it upside down, and then that way anything that was, excess would just run down, but not down the unit. Now normally I like to stain first and then paint, but since I had already primed everything, because I didn't think of this before I did this, I am trying to stay off the primer because I don't want to have to go back in and prime everything again. So that's kind of what's going on here. Normally I like to stain, and then I can prime, and I can wipe back the stain, whatever, and I can prime over it, and I don't need to worry too much about it poking through. But obviously this turned out a little different, and then my sponge kept on falling off the stick, so I just used the sponge as it was, and it worked just fine. So I just took some clean, fresh water and I wipe everything down with it. I'm going to be going in later on. I don't know where the footage went, but the inside of the drawers, I did end up sanding them because there was a bunch of stain from the previous finish, and it wasn't even the whole drawer. It was just halfway down the drawer. It looked pretty bad. So I did end up going and I sanded them down completely. So I'm going to go in with some Howard Feed and Wax later, and I'm going to seal them. And here I'm just putting on the panels, and I'm trying to line them up as the way that they were previously. I'm not sure that it really matters because I just took some fresh nails, some brad nails, and I just hammered it in rather than doing it with the staples the way that it was originally done, because I don't have my staple gun here.